You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are around the world. This is Force 13 Live. My name's Nathan Foy, as you can see. Wonderful. And we're tracking Cyclone Debbie, of course. Why wouldn't we? Cyclone Debbie, which is approaching the coast of Australia. There it is, the latest on the storm there. Our coverage has begun. We can turn that off now. 120 miles per hour, 943 millibars is the latest, 92 miles north of Mackay, 72 miles east-northeast of Bowen, 167 miles east-southeast of Townsville. Landfall is imminent in the next few hours as day will break over Queensland. I'm Nathan Foy. I'm joined by someone new, actually. We've got just one of our team members here, but that's fine, and it's Leighton. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you very well indeed. How are you?
I'm fine.
And we're obviously both tracking the storm, and there is your screen share. I don't know why it wasn't loading at first, but there is the storm. What do you think about it?
It's hard to say, it keeps changing its structure. It certainly seems to be struggling there.
Struggling to a degree, yet it's a category 4 on the Australian scale.
Yep, I'm aware of that.
And that it is, and let me just tell everyone what the warnings are right now. The warnings extend from Lucinda all the way to St Lawrence. That includes Townsville, Ayr, Bowen, Mackay, all points in between. Obviously, this is a significant storm. Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane wind scale, Category 4 on the Australian scale, winds around 120 miles per hour, just around 5 shy, by our estimates, of Category 5 on the Australian scale, and a pressure to match, I have to say. And there is certainly the possibility that this storm will make a Category 5 landfall, not ever so far away from where Marcia made its landfall, though Marcia was quite a bit further south. But this obviously is the first big threat to Queensland since Marcia. So obviously it's something that we're taking very seriously, and it's potentially going to be worse than Marcia because of where it is. It's closer to populated locations, and we're pretty sure of the track now. At the moment we're expecting it's going to make landfall just south of Bowen by just a handful of miles, and then continuing towards the southwest. Initially we were thinking it would be near Charters Towers, but it's going to be closer to Mount Coolon now, and then curving after that into what day will it be? Tuesday? Wednesday even. It's a Wednesday, and then out towards the southeast. Leighton, there's the radar imagery, and you can see some of the bands already moving over land.
Yep.
Anything
Very
you...
much.
Yes? What do we think of the structure right now?
It's holding together. It's not as good as it was earlier, though. It looked pretty good earlier.
Interesting, and we'll get first visible imagery on that as well in an hour or two. Maybe slightly more it will take for the imagery to get processed. But if you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air here, send us a message. Start your message with Force13, all in text if you're watching live, and we'll be able to address your questions and comments, and hopefully we'll be joined by some other members of our team later on in the live coverage. We are going to be here for the duration until at least the time when Debbie makes landfall, which at the moment is sort of hinting that it's going to be something like 6 hours.
Yeah, I was thinking that myself. Looks like landfall about 1 o'clock. Well, 1 o'clock our time.
Yeah, of course, both of us here in the UK. And Leighton, about the actual landfall, wind shear is low. Sea surface temperatures are high. There is the possibility, still a window for further intensification before landfall.
Yep.
Do you think
it has been fluctuating in intensity today? Especially this afternoon as well.
Well, there's the latest radar imagery, and I'm just looking at an image of elsewhere here. It looks to me now that it's got an element of concentric eye walls, particularly on the western side. It appears to have two eye walls for the time being.
New image.
And yeah, you can see it a lot more on the radar but the satellite, there it is.
That's collapsing.
Do you think?
Yeah, that's collapsing.
Looks a little weak on the southern side, but it always has, hasn't it?
It always has, yeah. It's weird. What's this? It's been struggling.
In fact, yes, I've just got a later image, and the southern eye wall has weakened somewhat. And I have to say, the edge of the eye is now very close to land. I keep forgetting the name of the closest point of land between Bowen and Mackay. Have you got it on there?
Don't know. I don't know what this does.
The place names there, what are they? I can't read them from here.
Quill Reef.
Yeah, that's just offshore.
Hamilton Island.
Hamilton Island, that is the bit that we were looking for. The edge of the eye is pretty close to Hamilton Island now, and that could well be, the storm would have to take a little bit of a southward dive if it was going to traverse the island. It looks like it's going to pass just west of there.
Could do. Depends exactly what this thing's doing. It's changing direction.
But initially we were thinking that the landfall location would be just south of Townsville, then we thought it would be around the Ayr region, and then it went south of there. We're now talking Bowen, and it could end up being Hamilton Island. But there we are, there's the geography of the area. And the storm is indeed pretty close to impacting that right now.
Yeah.
And if it does, I mean, we're talking 6 hours until landfall if it was going to be in Bowen. If it happens further south near Hamilton Island, then landfall will be brought forward a few hours, probably, maybe 3 hours or 4 hours until landfall. But winds from the storm right now, we expect, are around 125 miles per hour.
There's been reports
120, sorry.
For God's sake. Okay, it seems to be playing on my phone.
Oh dear. Go ahead if you've got something for us. There are some islands closer to the storm as well, but go on.
I did have something on Twitter not long ago.
Alright, we'll get to it in a moment. I just want to point out some distances. 32 miles from Hayman Island, 32 miles from Hook Island, and Hamilton Island itself is 43 miles from the centre of the storm, and Whitsunday Island 37 miles.
There's been reports of 107-mile-an-hour winds on Hamilton Island in the last hour. Yeah,
I was just getting acquainted with the geography whilst I was on air there. There are places that are closer than there, so that there could be even higher winds going on there right now. But is that 107 mile per hour gusts or sustained?
Gusts.
Gusts. That makes sense.
Probably around 60 sustained, if that.
So tropical storm force already, and it's only going to get. What was the pressure?
944 last time I knew. That was about
Really?
half an hour ago.
944, and that's 37. What is it? 43 miles from the centre.
Sorry, I thought it was on about the centre.
Oh,
I know the
sorry.
pressure was at the centre 944.
What about Hamilton Island?
Don't know.
Ah.
Got a report of that.
Well, it's probably not 944. I was getting worried there for a moment. Alright, let's see if we've got some questions. Obviously, people were asking about Hamilton Island whilst we were there just then. Let's see. A tropical cyclone weakening as it approaches land. Where have we seen that before? Yeah, every tropical cyclone ever. Yeah. That can, quite often, but not always. Don't forget, Cyclone Yasi didn't weaken until landfall. It was peak intensity at landfall, just short of Category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. So that's not to be forgotten about. There aren't obvious signs that this storm is weakening yet. Obviously, as soon as it becomes apparent, we'll of course be letting you know of that. But at the moment, it's going to be at least Category 3. 115 miles per hour. It's around 180 kilometers per hour. Go ahead.
If you look at my screen, 83 mile an hour winds. That was on the hour. They update on the hour. So 83 mile an hour winds at 7 o'clock.
83 mile per hour winds. I'm going to see if I can get any more observations of those areas, if possible. I'm going to see what we've got here. Some of these websites are a minefield to get round. Let's see. Yeah, Hamilton Island right now has a pressure of 981.7. That's the latest there. And as you said, the wind speed is 83 miles per hour, gusting to 101, but it did gust higher than 101 earlier. In fact, 1.5 hours ago on Hamilton Island, they had a wind gust of 182 kilometers per hour. That is around 113 miles per hour, I think. Yeah, so certainly getting pretty treacherous on those islands, and that isn't even the closest island to the storm, as I just found out. So the pressure's falling there. I think that's the closest observation station to the cyclone. I'm certainly not seeing any lower pressures than that, even in the offshore coral reefs and the like. But you were looking at models just then, were you?
Still am, yeah.
Well, I don't think there's too much for the models to say, is there? Because we pretty much know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And just a note here that the latest Bureau of Meteorology forecast has just come out right now at 4 a.m. It doesn't really say anything new. The storms they expect that it will make landfall pretty much on top of Bowen still in 6 hours exactly, and then it will move inland. They think it will make landfall as a Category 4 on the Australian scale, and then move inland. So let me reiterate the warning zone and all the localities in the warning zone right now. It extends along the coast from Lucinda all the way to St. Lawrence, all points in between along the coast: Serena, Mackay, Bowen, Ayr, Townsville, and inland locations: Ingham, Charters Towers, Pentland, Mount Coulon, Moranbah, Collinsville, and also Prosperine, if you count that as inland. That's not too far from the coast, and very close to Hamilton Island. No areas under watches anymore. It's all warnings.
Ouch.
The
That's
latest,
a lot of warnings.
Oh my! The latest from the Bureau of Meteorology, they say sustained winds at the centre, 175 kilometers per hour, which translates to around 110 miles per hour. Yep. And wind gusts of 250 kilometers per hour. That's around 155 miles per hour. That's remarkable. 30 kilometers within 30 kilometers of 19.8 degrees south, and but we pretty much stated the distances at the top of the hour. If you didn't catch that, it is 92 miles from Mackay, 72 miles from Bowen, 43 miles from Hamilton Island, and 32 miles from the closest significant landmass, Hayman Island and Hook Island. Right now, there are some coral reefs out there that it's pretty much on top of, but they're not inhabited.
The eye's over a couple at the moment.
Mm.
If I take the satellite off.
Yes, it is indeed. You can just about make it out there on that image. The
eye's about here.
Yes, and if you have any other questions for us, do let us know. Start your message with Force 13. It'll light up for me, and I'll be able to see who wants an answer. Though it appears that people are pretty satisfied right now. So the storm's direction. What do you think of its direction right now? Is it still west-southwest, or is it more of a southerly?
Yeah, I'd say west-southwest. Yeah.
Okay.
It's starting to track towards the south there.
Right. So that's interesting, because the models have been trending south the whole time, and you do wonder how far inland it will actually go before recurving and then moving out to sea. And the more that models trend south, the more likely it is that we will actually have a system to track when it emerges off Australia again in a day or two.
Indeed.
So that's the latest on the storm. Of course, we've got other things going on around the world. We had Cyclone Caleb, which is somewhat still going with a tiny bit of convection, the remnants of it. And I don't know
that keeps coming back. I don't know how.
If Leighton, you have any comments at all on Invest 90L.
There's not much to say. I could put it up on the screen. That's about it. It's highly. I don't know how to put it. It's not in the best place, to be fair. It's getting battered by dry air.
Right.
She is relaxed
Not
over
good.
it though. Yeah, if I could find a model, I'd put it up. But
Nihilist says, "Is this coming to Sydney?" I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be going anywhere near
a bit
Sydney.
too far south for that.
Even as a remnant, I don't think it's coming to Sydney. Brisbane possibly, but no, not Sydney. And your screen's gone black on us now, Leighton. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I have the window, Skype window.
Do you think it could re-intensify into a Category 1 after re-emerging? Category 1 on the Australian scale, yes. Category 1 on the Sappho-Simpson scale, don't think so.
No, not on the
there's a
Sappho.
first time for everything. But yeah, I you know, the land mass is too significant. It's probably going to move too far inland, and even if it didn't, it would probably, you know, not do.
Yeah.
It would probably weaken anyway. Sea
I
surface
suppose
temperatures will
it
start to
matters
decrease.
what. I suppose it means what conditions it comes out under, really. That's what it really does. I think if it comes out under a favourable environment, it could re-intensify. But it depends again how far south it is as to what it does. That's even if it survives.
Okay, yeah. And of course this storm is quite comparable to a few of the other storms. I mean, if it makes landfall at its current intensity, it will be one of the 6 strongest storms to make landfall on this stretch of the Queensland coast. There's going to be a little mini documentary that we've compiled that talks a little bit about that, which you might be interested in seeing a little bit later on. But we'll just tease that for a few moments. But yeah, it's certainly one of the strongest storms to have made landfall in this area if it keeps hold of its intensity. But
Yeah.
only 5 Category 3 Sappho-Simpson scale storms have made landfall on the Queensland coast between St Lawrence, or that area where Marcia made landfall, and the northernmost extent around Innisfail. You might be able to guess a few of them. Marcia I already mentioned, that's one of them. And we'll leave everyone else on a guessing game for the others. One of them I'm guaranteeing that you won't be able to get. I'm just looking at that satellite imagery, Leighton, and those latest frames. It's moving west.
Yeah. Keeps changing direction, the stupid thing.
It's moving
Makes
west
it-
right now.
Yeah, it has seemed
Let's
to be
get it on the
moving
big
west.
screen here. There you can see the latest frames. And the storm initially west-southwest, but those latest frames, that's westward movement.
It's been tracking due west. It's been going in a due west direction. Which
So-
would bring it to Bowen.
Is that a jog, or is it going to be Bowen at ground zero here?
Just have to keep watching.
At the moment, I'm not convinced that it's anything more of a jog, and I do think it will make landfall near that area that juts out the most. Pardon me for not knowing what it's called, but not far from Hamilton Island. The part there that is most prominent along the coast, I do think it might just about get there. Bowen is pretty much due west of the eye right now, perhaps even a touch of north as well. Not sure. No, it is due west pretty much. And Townsville is way over to the west. Townsville's probably just about getting the outer edge of the storm right now. And you can see it on the radar there as well. And further south, Mackay is probably getting... Is it getting significant parts of the storm? I reckon so.
I ain't got many place names on here. Let me see if I can change that.
Alright.
No, I don't think I can.
Okay, interesting question says, is this coming to Latvia? Well, if there's a place called Latvia in Australia, it's quite possible, but I don't think there is. And also... There was something else. Was there something else? Do cyclones just fizzle out to nothing? They die down, don't they? And what makes them die down or pick up? Well, quite a few factors can cause storms to weaken and dissipate. In this instance, it's going to be land interaction alone. As it encounters land, of course, the storms really need water to keep themselves sustained. They need to be over ocean. That's why storms always weaken over land, except maybe one or two notable examples. Pretty much every storm weakens over land, and if they don't initially, they will eventually. And over an area like Australia, which is pretty dry, this storm will probably weaken pretty quickly when it moves over land. So that's one of them. Wind shear is another factor. Extremely high amounts of wind shear can really disrupt a storm.
Yeah, that can pretty much pull it apart.
Destroys storms. The wind shear is near nil, so wind shear has never been an issue with this storm. Sea surface temperatures need to be warm enough. They need to be around 26 degrees Celsius or so to sustain tropical cyclone development. The current sea surface temperature is 28 Celsius around there, maybe slightly higher, so that's not an issue either. And the reason why we don't have really big storms making landfall all the time is because one of these factors is not in the storm's favour most of the time, but every so often everything conspires in favour of the storm, and that's why you get the stronger landfalls of Category 4 and 5. Whether this one will get to Category 4 Saffir-Simpson scale, well, we'll wait and see, but it is Category 4 on the Australian scale. And I think that's strong enough, don't you? But the wind gusts, the Bureau of Meteorology themselves saying wind gusts 155 miles per hour, 250 kilometers per hour. That's remarkable, if true.
Yeah. I'm getting a weakening flag on this on Devarak.
Oh, that's interesting. So the automated satellite system there is saying that the storm is beginning to weaken. Well, I'm not convinced of that just yet.
Nah. Not really convinced myself because it keeps going back up. There's still some pretty strong convection around there as well. So that it will weaken much if it does.
Okay, Stephen says, can you go over some of the areas of concern for storm surge south of the eye wall? I'm not sure whether you could do that for us, Leighton.
Let me take this off.
I don't really know much about the area and how bad the storm surge could potentially be, but obviously it won't be a good idea to be near the coast, especially on any of those islands. And of course along the coast where the storm is about to impact.
New image. Mackay could get it. Certainly the islands, as you said. Just basically along that coast, really. As long as you pretty much level with the storm, you should get surge. I mean, up and down the coast, you get rip currents as well.
Yes, yes. Obviously, it will not be a good day to go out on the beach. And of course, we will be broadcasting throughout the day as it is in Australia, pretty much until landfall, possibly a little bit later. Of course, it's only 4:24 a.m. in the east coast, on the east coast right now. So obviously things will pick up a little bit more later on. Now, let's see, what else have we got? Stephen says Cyclone Yasi was probably the biggest this decade, I would think. For the Queensland coast, yes, it was. And
probably by far.
Probably for the whole of Australia, the biggest landfall. Australia this decade has really been pretty quiet when you consider what we had in the 2 or 3 decades prior to that. They had loads of storms making landfall. And if you want to see Southern Hemisphere pandemonium, I highly recommend looking at what it was like late season in the Southern Hemisphere in 1991-92, I believe it was. Remarkable. Within a day of each other, I think there were 4 Category 4 cyclones on the Saffir-Simpson scale in the Southern Hemisphere. Outrageous.
That is indeed pretty horrendous.
Yes,
I had an image coming about.
Sorry?
I had an image coming about 5 minutes ago. I don't know if you saw it come up.
We're looking at your screen the whole time, yes. And we'll obviously keep that up there. CHD Returns says the reason storms hit less often in the Pacific than the Atlantic is because, as a general rule, the Pacific consists mainly of islands. As a result, there's a smaller area for a cyclone to affect. Well, that's true for the Eastern Pacific, and of course, don't forget, most storms in the Northern Hemisphere move in a westerly direction. So, of course, with the Eastern Pacific, the continent of America being on the eastern side, there's hardly any storms that turn around and go east. And then you've got the Western Pacific, but the Western Pacific is very prone. The Philippines, just off the coast of the Philippines, is the cyclone hotspot of the world.
Yep. They get up to 30 a year there.
Can do. Just to the northwest of southern Luzon, I believe, the epicenter of that is. Now, let's see. Yeah, how many foot of storm surge from this storm? I don't know whether we could come up with any estimates at this time, but I do think the storm
depends
surge
on the strength at landfall, I'd say.
The storm surge could be significant. I would suggest several feet near the centre of the storm, and towards Mackay probably it's difficult to gauge, maybe a couple of feet, 3 feet, maybe a little bit more than that. I'm trying to...
I can't even see Mackay.
Mackay's a bit further up, I believe, is it not? There's one of the outer bands. I might be wrong on that.
What, these here? Yeah,
there's the outer band of the storm, and that looks pretty heavy as well out to sea.
Yeah, there is some strong thunderstorms away from the centre.
That's an interesting point, Stephen, as well. The Great Barrier Reef plays a big part in keeping down the wave heights and storm and surge height. Of course,
very true indeed.
This part of the coast where the Great Barrier Reef is extremely shallow, of course. However, if you had a storm that made landfall a bit further north, say north of Cairns, there's less shallow water. There's less run up to land before the shallow water gets there, if you get my drift. But yeah, there is a lot of shallow water in. Let's just say here the shelf between the bit that falls away into the ocean and the actual land area is around 60 miles. So that's quite a lot of shallow water for the storm to traverse, and I think the longer time it spends over the shallow water before it hits land will probably not be a good thing for the storm. But a good thing for everyone else, of course. Stephen says Marcia was only a 2 on the Saffir-Simpson at landfall, ? No, I'm afraid you're mistaken. Category 4, 130 miles per hour at peak by our estimates. And I think landfall was slightly less, 125 miles per hour, something to that effect. But Category 5 on the Australian scale, no doubt. Now, let's see. We're mainly taking questions during this hour, I think, because there's just the 2 of us here and there's only so much that we can personally cover. But Leighton, I don't know if you've got any thoughts right now.
I don't know, it's just mainly keeping an eye on the storm really and just noting any changes. That's all I'm really doing at the moment.
Obviously the new imagery is coming in all the time.
I get imagery every 5-10 minutes, I think it is, on this website.
So if you've just joined us, we expect landfall will be in around 6 hours from now. Right, well, what we're going to do now is we're going to play a little clip that I was teasing ever so slightly earlier about storms that have made landfall in Queensland. Hope you enjoy this little video. Let's now take a look at 5 notable cyclones that have made landfall on the Queensland coast. Let's start in the north, where Larry made landfall in 2006. Cyclone Larry, for its intensity, was pretty short-lived, forming in March 2006 and making landfall as a Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale near Innisfail. 1 was killed, and the storm caused $1.5 billion of damages AU. This was followed 5 years later by Cyclone Yasi, which made landfall just shy of Category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. It was a Category 5 on the Australian scale, causing $3.5 billion AU of damage and 1 fatality indirect. As you can see, it also caused significant flooding damage too. In 1989, Cyclone Ivu formed a compact system, making landfall as a Category 3 in Ayr near Townsville. It caused 1 fatality and had damages of $90 million Australian. In January 1918, a storm devastated Mackay, a Category 3 we believe, but it could have been stronger, with a pressure of around 932 millibars at landfall, killing 30 and causing severe damage. And finally, the most recent one, Cyclone Marcia, which made landfall with winds of 130 miles per hour or higher, Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, Category 5 on the Australian scale. Didn't kill anyone, thankfully, but it did cause 750 million Australian dollars of damage. So, those are the 5 strongest storms to have made landfall in this area, and it looks like Debbie may well be joining them soon. Stay safe. And we're back. This is Force 13 Live. My name's Nathan Foy, and here we are. You can see all the screens, and hello, I'm here looking at you. And back over here with everything that's going on right now. Cyclone Debbie has winds of 120 miles an hour and a pressure of 943 millibars. By our latest observations, it looks like it's moving due west. 92 miles north of Mackay as of the top of the hour, 72 miles east-northeast of Bowen, and 167 miles east-southeast of Townsville. We're joined by the Skype team, consisting of only one of us right now, apart from myself, Leighton, who is new to live streaming, let's not forget. And we're both tracking Cyclone Debbie. And there is the latest radar image of the storm as well. So what do we think?
Well, not much has changed in the last 10 minutes.
Copious amounts of
The radar's
rainfall
speaking a bit on
landing
the...
there now, it seems.
Yeah, there's more storms moving inland from the storm. From the main storms, was that. Some of them do appear quite strong as well.
Yes,
Look,
indeed.
that one's out to sea, luckily.
Yeah, the leading edge, but quite often that they are stronger when they are
Yeah,
out
that
to sea.
is. Wherever the cyclone's moving, the
Let's
storm
see
tends to be strong on that
if
side.
we've got a new image of the storm. Yes, we do. Oh my goodness, Leighton, it's not good. Well, it is good depending on what perspective, but the southern eye wall has collapsed.
Yep,
Is the
that's
latest
completely
news.
gone. That's completely gone.
Yep, the southern eye wall, well, is in the process of collapsing, has pretty much collapsed, and the storm looking rather dishevelled in these latest frames. The eye is not particularly clear cut, and by daybreak, when we get visible imagery coming in about 2 hours from now, it's not we're not going to have much of an eye to see by the looks of things, because it looks like it's becoming more shallow. It's triangular right now,
Yep.
and the biggest
Goddamn
cloud
zoomy.
tops and convection from the storm is to the north and east. The western side is not as bad, and the southern side is not. It is even less bad, and I'm not sure what conditions are like down there right now, but I can tell you it could be a lot worse if you're in Mackay and if you're on Hamilton Island, because it's falling apart. Let me try and get the latest observations from Hamilton Island and see what sort of rain rate they're getting or anything like that. I'm just gonna get to that myself here. So the latest pressure they've got is 981.4. They have got. Where's the anything about rainfall? Yeah, they've had. They've not had
I only get humidity.
that much rain since midnight. They've had 18 millimeters of rain since midnight. That is about 2/3 of an inch. So not a huge amount of rainfall there in 4 hours.
Winds are increasing on Hamilton Island. They haven't increased much there.
Yeah, we've got the winds. Yeah, winds are pretty high. That is true. Winds 77 knots. They just got
87 miles an hour.
15 minutes ago. So Category 1 hurricane conditions there on the Australian scale. I think that's Category 3 conditions currently being experienced on Hamilton Island, which is the closest observation point to Debbie.
I might be wrong, but I think the southern eye is open.
It's nearly open, and give it another frame or two looking the way like with the trend that it's been going on, and it will have an open southern side to the eye.
Yeah, it's still closed on radar. Looks open on satellite imagery there.
Yeah, the satellite imagery is but the storm is, it is falling apart. That's from a scientific point of view. From the human and preparational point of view, it's still going to cause a significant impact along the coast. It's too late, really, for things to change, because the storm is so close to land. Even if it completely capitulated right now, winds would die down, but then the bigger problems would then become a surge, which would still be present, flooding issues, which still could be present, and what else? I was going to lead on to something else then, but I forgot. But I don't think winds are going to go down. Already Category 3 conditions on the Australian scale over on the Hamilton Island, possibly Category 4 conditions on those islands further north, which are closer to the centre of the storm. And then areas towards Bowen are still on the western side, which is not as weak as the southern side, so still people would need to be very vigilant if you're in these areas. Okay, let's see if we've got any more comments. Mashed Potatoes 2000 says, why is the website broken and is anything being done about it? Well, that is not my department, I'm afraid. But I am told by Jason, who maintains the website, that we are working on a new layout and format, which is probably why it's not being maintained presently. I'm hoping that will come about pretty soon. Let's see. Anything you'd like to add there, Leighton?
No, nothing.
CHD Returns says, why the heck was Otto retired? What are your opinions on that?
There is tendencies for crossover storms to get retired because they are pretty significant. I've noticed that myself. I was actually pretty surprised to see Otto go, but I was expecting it. Because every Atlantic
you were
crossover
expecting
storm, every crossover storm between the two basins has been retired.
Is that so?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Didn't realise that.
Every single crossover
no,
between.
I think they're right to retire it. There was a significant fatality account in Costa Rica and the neighbouring countries.
Not to mention it's Costa Rica's first hurricane as well.
Effectively, yes, even though it wasn't quite a landfall in Costa Rica, but it did move over its territory. But I think they were right to retire Otto, they were right to retire Matthew, and I think they've made a good call with those two and nothing more. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Well, some people were surprised that Earl wasn't retired as well. Okay, can these cyclones ever have enough power to lift up people or animals in the air? I saw a cow in the air, but that could have been photoshopped. Cows can be launched into the air from tornadoes, but I highly doubt most hurricanes or cyclones would cause that.
Oh, new imagery.
Another question, could the reef be damaged? Well, there isn't too much reef that has been directly under the storm, so I think damages will be limited. There could be some damage, but it's a big long line of the Great Barrier Reef after all, and only a small part of the reef is being affected. Alex Lamb suggesting this might be an eye wall replacement cycle. What do you think?
Ooh, could be. You never know.
I'm not convinced. I think it's land interaction.
Convinced. I think it is land interaction, yeah.
Yeah.
Without thinking it. Yeah, it definitely looks like land interaction.
Well, those islands are right underneath where that weakness appears, so it would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yep, it would indeed.
Someone asked what the difference between a hurricane and cyclone is. Well, the answer's nothing.
Just location, really.
Yeah. It's funny how that came about, though, the distinction in name. But if you look back at old documents from the United States and other locations, they used to call everything a hurricane, or pretty much. Extratropical storms they called hurricanes, southern hemisphere storms they called hurricanes way back when. And around 100 years ago, this might surprise you, they called tornadoes cyclones.
Indeed they did.
Some of them did. Some of them certainly did. I saw that in a few journals. Lots of questions. Is there any footage of inside the eye of a cyclone, tornado, hurricane, etc.? Not this one, but there is plenty of stuff from inside the storm eyes. I would bring up some more imagery content, but we're pretty busy presenting the show here. When we get more people around on the stream here, I might free me up a little bit in actually doing other things. But in the meantime, we'll leave you with this image of Cyclone Debbie whilst I go and do something over here on the left hand side. But if you have any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air, do send us a message. Start your message with Force 13, all in text, if you're watching us live, and we will it will light up on my screen, and we will get round to your questions. Momentarily, I think we're going to be joined by someone else, which I'm very pleased about, to join us in this coverage of what we expect will be a landfalling storm in the next 4 hours or less. 6 hours or less. Though it looks to me as though it's going to be less than 6 hours the way it's going.
Yeah, so 4, maybe 5. Depends on its speed, really, because it keeps changing.
Yeah, the speed has been stop-start as it's been moving towards the west-southwest. But again, those latest frames there looks to me as though it's been moving west. Let me just try and get an updated version of that now. This is an updated version, and as you can see, it continues still a westward motion in those last frames. As the top of the hour, this storm was 92 miles north of Mackay, 72 miles east-northeast of Bowen, 167 miles east-southeast of Townsville, and that will probably be closer at the next update coming up in 15 minutes.
Okay, let's have a look.
Elvin Lee confirms what we were saying earlier. Hamilton Island observation was 981.4, but more importantly, the wind speed there sustained was 77 knots. That's around 87, 88 miles per hour.
Yeah, I've got that on there. 87.
And another question there, bringing up about why we use different scales. Well, it does get quite confusing because we have two scales. We have the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale that's used around the world and has been for decades, and you've got the Australian scale, which has been used in Australia for decades, and they're quite different. I have compiled a little feature about that as well, which you'll see at 7:30 UTC, that talks about the differences between those two scales. But they are quite different. We sort of flick between the two whilst we're here, but just to confirm, this storm is a category 4 on the Australian scale, a category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale. Anything that we use on our graphics is using the Saffir-Simpson scale because we are international. Questions. Is it affecting any areas in Australia? It's affecting many areas in Australia, actually. And it gives me a good excuse to reveal the warnings again. Lucinda to St. Lawrence is under a cyclone warning right now. That includes Townsville, Mackay and the Whitsunday Islands, extending inland to Charters Towers, Mount Coolon, Moranbah and Pentland. There are no cyclone watches, only warnings. The Bureau of Meteorology says that the storm has winds of 175 miles per hour. We go a little bit higher at around 190 kilometers per hour. They say that there's wind gusts of 250 kilometers per hour, which is around 155 miles per hour, which I find staggering if true. We haven't seen any reports of gusts to that magnitude yet. The highest wind gust we've had so far, now that the highest gust on Hamilton Island recently was 116 miles per hour.
When did that come in?
That was 15 minutes ago.
Wow.
So they have been pretty strong wind gusts over there. Alright. Well, we're going to take a short break here now. We'll be with you again at the top of the next hour at 7 p.m. UTC to talk more about Cyclone Debbie and to give you more coverage on the storm and more information as we get it. This is Force 13 Live. Stay tuned. There's more on the way. continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com, at your service at any time with the latest storm updates. You can also find us on YouTube if you're not watching us there already, and subscribe if you've not done so. You can also find us on Facebook, search Force 13 all in text, and it's at Force 13 on Twitter if you'd like to get in touch on those mediums. You can also add Fool 13 on Skype and add extension 9094 on Discord for tropical weather chat.